Okay, what is all this? This is Kellyology in the circulatory system and how the blood works and how it flows through the heart. So first off, I want to cover arteries. The arteries are going to be, this is close to red as I can get, which means they have oxygen in them. So red means oxygen. Blue means they're deoxygenated. Those are your veins. So let's start with the absolute largest artery in the body. That's the aorta. Remember, A equals away. Arteries always carry blood away from the heart. So that's always carry blood away from the heart. Arteries always carry blood away from the heart. Very important to remember. So you've got the aorta, then it shrinks down into arteries. It gets into arterioles, which are the smallest arteries out there, and then capillaries, which are 1 cell thick. They're tiny little vessels that's where oxygen exchange occurs. Body drops off carbon dioxide, the blood picks up oxygen at the capillary level, which is why it changes here, because capillaries are neither oxygen filled or not oxygen filled, because they're both. As they join, they start offloading and onloading. They dump off oxygen, pick up the body's waste, start back through the veins. Veins always return blood back to the heart, always back to the heart. So capillaries to the venules, to the veins. Venules are little tiny veins. Veins are your bigger ones. Vena cava are the largest veins in the body. Once we have that, we can move on. We've got arteries always move blood away from the heart. So it's the aorta to the arteries, to the arterioles, to the capillaries, switches over to deoxygenated blood, venules, the veins, the vena cava, and then back to the heart. So I have my heart here. I draw it kind of like a traditional heart, just so that people understand, but you can look up the anatomy. It looks more like kind of a lopsided potato and with a narrow bottom. But what I did do is I included this side of the heart to be the largest. This is the left side of the heart. Remember, we always talk about the left of the patient, not the way you're looking at them, but the left of the patient. So here's the left on our patient. That's me, big belly. So the largest part of the heart is the ventricle, and this is the left ventricle. Okay, so the left ventricle is the largest side of the heart, and it pumps against the most resistance because it pumps to the body. So like any other muscle, the more you work it out, the bigger it gets. That's why the left side of the heart is a little bit bigger. So what you have here are valves. And you notice they're pointed this direction because they allow blood to come through, and then they close once the blood has been pushed through so that it can't back up. So we go to the body. This comes out of the left ventricle via the aorta. It's A-O-T-A. Through the aorta. Okay, it goes down into the body, and I'll go over here. Here's your arteries, then the arterioles, and then those branch out into different things. And once you get down to the arterioles, I'll go up here, and then they break out into capillaries. Okay, capillaries will only allow 1 cell at a time to pass through it. Okay, so they're teeny little vessels. So the capillaries allow the vessels to come through here, and this is where the oxygen is dumped off to the body, and the cells of the body have been using that oxygen. So now the cells come back, the body says, okay, you can have this this CO2, this carbon dioxide. So waste of product of the body. So now we're deoxygenated. And your capillaries turn into venules, which turn into veins, okay, which then turn into the vena cava. Okay, and you've got two. You've got one that comes from the top. You've got one that comes from the bottom. We're not going to get too much into that. Just know that the vena cava feeds blood back to the heart. Okay, so we've got oxygen going that way. We've got blood flowing, hits the body, comes back this way. Make sure we've got our arrows so you know the direction it's going. Vena cava, and then it comes in right here. Okay, this is the RA, or right atrium. Okay, the right atrium, not a lot of muscle here. There is some muscle, but most of the filling this way is filled by just kind of passive, where the blood just kind of fills down into the right ventricle. Okay, once it hits the right ventricle, then there's muscle here because it's got to pump it out away from the heart. So we come here. This is, because it's going to the lungs, it's the pulmonary artery. Remember what I said, arteries always carry blood away from the heart. This time it's carrying blood away from the heart, but notice it is deoxygenated. Majority of the time, arteries are oxygenated unless we're dealing with the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery, it carries deoxygenated blood because it is carrying blood to the lungs away from the heart. So it's going to come into here, same thing, breaks down into the capillaries. So what I've done is I've taken the alveoli of the lung and I've blown up a single sac. So blood kind of comes in like this. Okay. All right, so what it does, this sac is, this goes off to the lungs, and it takes the carbon dioxide, which is here, and it pushes it off to the lungs. Then the oxygen, and I'll just use the abbreviation O2, is coming in to the alveoli. So that happens through a process called diffusion, higher concentration to a lower concentration. So the oxygen is picked up, diffuses across the alveolar membrane, and then goes into the circulation, which then does the same thing and this is the pulmonary vein. It's coming from the lungs, heading back into the left side of the heart. This is the left atrium. Notice it's picked up oxygen. So the pulmonary vein is the larger vessel, carries it in, goes through a valve into the left atrium. And again, same process. Squeezes a little bit here, but a lot of it happens through just gravity, and it just kind of falls through, and then we're into the ventricle, back through the whole thing all over again. That is how you trace the blood through the heart.